Are you having mix issues that an EQ and compressor just can't quite fix? Stick around, I've got the solution for you. Welcome back, home studio professionals. In this video, we are talking all about Soothe2 from OX Sound. OX Sound. First, we'll do a walkthrough of all the controls so I can show you what it is and how it works. And then I'll show you the 4 most common ways I like to use Soothe. Let's get started. First, let's go over what Soothe2 is and some of the controls so I can show you how to use it. Soothe2 is a dynamic EQ that helps control resonances, tame muddy bass buildup, and you can even use it for de-essing and other things like that. So over here, we've got the main section. It defaults to soft mode, but there is a hard mode. Soft mode is more transparent, and it's better for keeping the transients intact, so like your drum hits and stuff like that, it's not going to squash those too much. And the hard mode is a little more powerful and more level dependent. I would use something like this on a guitar cab with really bad resonances. Then you have your depth, which controls how much processing is applied to the signal, so how much of that resonance you're getting rid of. Then we have the sharpness, which controls how deep and how narrow the cuts are within the plugin. So if you turn the sharpness up, the deeper and more narrow the cuts get, and if you turn it down, the wider and more rounded off the gain reduction becomes. And then selectivity is Soothe determining how selective it is about the frequencies it cuts. It works based on a threshold. So when you set a higher selectivity value, only the most prominent resonances are cut. Then we have our stereo section. Right now it is in left-right mode, and that's better for sources with hard panned left and right material. Then we also have mid-side, which works well for complex stereo material, stuff like drums where you have toms panned, not quite hard left and right, and sometimes orchestras that have scattered instruments throughout the stereo field. Then we have this link percentage, which just tells us how much processing it's affecting on both sides evenly. So with the link at 100%, Soothe will apply the same processing to both channels. And when it's set at 0, it will act as a dual mono plugin, affecting the left and right completely independent of each other. Then we have the speed section. So we've got our attack, which tells us how quickly Soothe is going to react to those resonances, and the release, which is how long it's going to hold on to the processing. I typically just leave it at a fast release, but sometimes that's a little bit too noticeable, so you can go with a little bit slower release to make it a little bit more natural. And then we have our quality section. It defaults to 1x and normal, but you can oversample this up to 4 times, and you can have ultra high resolution, and that's just going to filter the correct frequencies a little bit better. And when you're working with really low frequencies, when they're so close together, sometimes this is very helpful to pick out the exact frequency that is building up. And you can have varying oversample rates and resolution rates from when you're listening to when you're bouncing. So if you want to just listen at 2 times oversample and high resolution, but you want to bounce at an even higher rate, you can do that. Then of course we have a sidechain where you can trigger Soothe to react based on a different signal from a different channel. And then we have our mix control. If you want to control some of those resonances, but it's killing it a little bit too much, you can back it off and hear a blend of the fully processed signal and the original signal. And then we have our trim, which can be pretty important because what this is doing is turning down the volume at certain frequencies. So that's overall going to turn down the volume of the signal, so you can just make that up. And then we have this delta button right here, which is kind of interesting. This is the difference between the dry signal and the wet signal. And sometimes this will tell you what exactly to boost or cut on an EQ, but sometimes you can just leave it on for a cool effect. And then we have our bypass. Now that you know how it works, let's get into my favorite uses for Soothe2. Number 1 is definitely overheads. Sometimes you just get a certain cymbal that is extremely harsh and louder than all the rest. In this case, I'll close out the plugin, and I'll just play this chorus for you. That Zilbel is so loud. It's this little thing right here. I'll play it one more time. And it's overpowering the rest of the kit. If I'm wearing headphones and listening to this, it's piercing my ear. So let's bring up Soothe. Now these are the default settings, and honestly this is usually good enough to get the job done. So let's see what it sounds like right off the bat. So it's doing a lot to tame some harshness in this upper register, but especially when the Zill bell hits, it's really clamping that down. You can see it right there. It's really taming that. All right, up next, we've got bass. So first, let's just take a listen to the soloed bass line. So it's not terrible, but there is a ton of low-end energy that my NS10s are barely picking up even because it's just so deep. And that's the kind of thing that's really going to muddy up a mix and especially cover up our nice powerful kick drums. So let's open up Soothe. And I just went up here, went to bass, and found the demudding the bass preset. And honestly, the presets in this plugin are pretty incredible. So let's turn it on and see what it does. Like I said, we've got a ton of that low-end energy where it's just building up right down here. And it's even taking out some of that nasty slap of the bass, which can be really cool. Sometimes I like it, sometimes I don't. So let's say we want to keep a little bit more of it. Then we just turn that down and that puts less into the plugin. Now, if you want to control specific frequencies very tightly, we could take the sharpness knob and turn it up. I think it sounds a little bit smoother and a little bit more natural with it down here, just like it had in the preset. And this is the hard mode, so it's going to be a little bit more intensive than the soft mode. Now let's say we want to keep some of that extra low end, but we still like the tameness that we're getting from this. Let's just take this mix knob and bring it back down. Bring it down a little bit more, 50-50. I like this a lot. This way we're getting some of that weight of the low end still, but it's just not building up and it's not going to cover up our kick drum. Before we keep going, let me know what you would use Soothe on in your mixes in the comments right down below. And while you're down there, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to this channel for more content like this. Let's keep it going. Number 3 on my Soothe list is vocals. Now I really like to use this on the vocal bus, but occasionally there's a single vocal track that has just a ton of variances in the low end and high end, and Soothe helps even that out a lot. But I mostly use this on the vocal bus when there are big sections with stacks and stacks of vocals. Now in this chorus you can see we've got a lead vocal, a double, a low octave, and a harmony. All of these are going to the clean vox bus. Let's take a listen before Soothe.
And I see that you're lost in the veil, arguing that nothing seems fair.
So it sounds pretty good, nice and lively, but there's some really harsh buildup in the upper mid-range. So I'm just going to take Soothe, turn it on, and open it up. Now what I did is I took this band and moved it to about 5.5K. And this is pushing more into the plugin, so the farther up I go, the farther it pushes. And then I took some of this high end, made a band, and pushed this further into the plugin, so it's really taming a lot of this area. Let's take a listen.
And I see that you're lost in the veil, arguing that nothing seems fair, lost and afraid. You can't make it out, you bring me down.
So just that one move is doing a lot to take that harshness out of the vocal and help blend all of the tracks together. It wasn't doing a whole lot, but it really didn't have to, and that's one of the things I love about this plugin, is that it can be used very, very subtly with great results, or you can kind of go crazy with it. And just for kicks, let's see what it sounds like when I go crazy with it.
And I see that you're lost in the veil, arguing that nothing seems fair.
So you can see when the S's are coming in, like the sibilants, it's really taming that hard. So let's back it back off.
And I see that you're lost in the veil, arguing that nothing seems fair.
So not only is it doing all that cool stuff I said before, it's also de-essing the whole vocal bus. And last, but certainly not least, we have my favorite use for Soothe. It is on the entire mix bus. So I usually don't put a lot of plugins on my mix bus now that I've been using a dedicated mastering engineer, which I highly recommend you all do. But if you are mastering your own stuff, or if you want to do just a little bit of mix bus processing before you send it off to a mastering engineer, this is one of the things that I think can be really beneficial. So I open up Soothe, and I found the preset de-essing the master. And what this did is it shaves off all the excess high end and helps focus on just the music. Now, of course, it de-esses a little bit and tames some harsh resonant frequencies, but listen to the overall tone of what this is doing. First, I'll play it in bypass, and then I'll put it in. Let's go to a chorus where we have a great big section here. All right, chorus 3, here we go. So again, this is a very subtle move, but I think it had a really big impact on the focus of the mix. With it in, especially on the guitars, it helps bring them to the front of the speakers, and you focus more on the notes rather than the fizz in the distortion. Now, the one thing I was hearing that I didn't quite like as much is it kind of took a little bit of the room sound away from the snare. So what I would do in that situation is just take the mix knob and bring it down. When I put Soothe on the mix bus and use the de-essing the master preset, I'm usually sitting the mix around 70%. So let's put that at 70% and see what we've got. I'll start with it bypassed and then I'll bring it in. So I thought the 59% was giving us a really good blend of the dry signal versus the wet signal. There you have it, my favorite uses for Soothe2. Thanks for watching this video, and I'll catch you in the next one.